All right, you have definitely seen them. They are all over your social media feeds. You know, those beautifully designed, feel-good phrases that promise to completely change your life. Yep, I'm talking about positive affirmations.
You've got classics like this one, right? I am worthy. It's simple, it's direct, and it is pretty much the cornerstone of self-worth posts online. Or how about this one? I choose happiness. I mean, the whole idea that you can just decide to be happy, that is an incredibly powerful and appealing message, and boy, does it get a lot of traction. And of course, you've got the big power statement, I am unstoppable. Look, they sound amazing, they can feel really good to say, but that brings us to the real question. Do they really have the power to rewire our brains? Or are we basically just whispering nice things into the void? Well, today we're going to dig into the science and find out what's really going on. Now, you might be thinking this is all just a recent trend, something born on Instagram. But the truth is, the science behind this stuff goes way, way further than you'd probably guess. So the core idea, which is called self-affirmation theory, actually first showed up in the late 1980s. For a long time, it was this niche thing only academics talked about. Then, in the 2000s, researchers started looking into how it could be used in the real world. But it was really the 2010s with the explosion of social media that it went totally mainstream. So what even is this theory? Well, at its heart, it's pretty simple. It says that we are all fundamentally motivated to protect our sense of who we are, our self-worth. So when we face a threat, like major stress at work, the sting of failure, or feeling rejected, our self-image takes a hit. And affirmations are supposed to act like a kind of psychological shield in those moments. So does the research actually back this up? The answer is yes, but, and this is a really big but, with some major caveats. A huge review of studies found that, yeah, affirmations can improve how you see yourself. But, and this is the part the Instagram posts always leave out, the effects are usually pretty small. We're talking minor boosts, not life-changing transformations. For instance, one study found that students who wrote about their core values right before a big exam actually did better. So it shows these things can work, but it's often in very specific targeted situations, not as some kind of cure-all. Okay, this is where it gets really, really interesting, because the online hype completely misses the mark on some crucial downsides. There are actually times when these supposedly positive phrases can do way more harm than good. And that brings us to what researchers call the affirmation paradox. See, the promise is simple. Say something positive about yourself, and you'll feel more confident. But, and this is wild, for people who already have low self-esteem, repeating something like, I am lovable, can actually make them feel worse. It's like their brain instinctively fights back, listing all the reasons that statement doesn't feel true, which just makes that negative self-image even stronger. And believe me, the risks don't stop there. You've got the whole trap of toxic positivity, that good vibes only mindset that pushes us to ignore or suppress totally valid emotions like sadness or anger. It can also set up these wild, unrealistic expectations that just saying the right words will fix really complex problems. And when we believe that, we end up masking the real issues in our lives that actually need us to take real action. So, if they're not magic spells, and we know they can sometimes backfire, why do they seem to help some people? Well, the answer isn't in the words themselves. It's about what those words do to our brains in very specific, often stressful moments. Here's how they really work. Think of them less like a permanent solution and more like a temporary tool. They work best as a mental buffer, something you use right before a stressful event, like giving a big presentation. In that moment, they can interrupt your inner critic and give you a quick, short-term confidence boost. But here's the absolute key. They are a supplement, not a solution. Their real power only gets unlocked when you combine them with meaningful, real-world action. Okay, so this leads us to a much more powerful and frankly more scientifically backed approach. It's not about forcing yourself to believe something you don't. It's about fundamentally changing the way you talk to yourself. So let's compare these two, side by side. A generic affirmation is something like, I am great. It's an absolute statement, and for a lot of us, it just doesn't feel believable. Now look at mindful self-compassion. It acknowledges reality. It says, this is hard, which validates your struggle. And then it says, but I can handle it, which affirms your actual ability to cope. You see the difference? This approach is grounded, it's realistic, and it's what builds true lasting resilience. So here are two really powerful alternatives you can use. First, that practice of self-compassion we just talked about. And second, this fascinating technique called a perspective shift. Get this. It involves talking to yourself in the third person. So instead of thinking, I'm so stressed out, you'd actually say, your name is feeling stressed. It sounds a little strange, I know. But research shows it creates just enough psychological distance to help you manage intense emotions way more effectively. So after all of that, where do we land? What's the bottom line here? If you remember just one thing from this entire explainer, please make it this. Positive affirmations are tools, not rules. That's it. Think of them like a hammer. A hammer is the perfect tool if you're dealing with a nail, but it's completely useless for a screw. You have to use them strategically, maybe to calm your nerves before a big meeting, but don't treat them like a magic wand that can fix every single problem. Because at the end of the day, the magic isn't in the phrase you see on a screen. The power is in whether or not those words actually feel true and useful to you in your life right now. Self-talk that is compassionate, realistic, and connected to your real experience will always, always be more powerful than some generic phrase you're just repeating on autopilot. So there you have it. If this explainer helped you think a little differently about your own inner dialogue, do us a favor and let us know by hitting that like button. And I really want to know what you think. Have you ever tried these? Did they work for you, or did they kind of backfire? Jump into the comments below and let's talk about it. And finally, if you love getting these clear, no hype, science-backed breakdowns of the big ideas that shape our lives, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Thanks so much for watching.